Hello, thank you for joining me again on a Sunday late afternoon in Central Europe. I hope you're all well, wherever you are in the world. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about these sessions that we have. And we've been doing these now for over 2 years. And I've really enjoyed doing them, and I still do. As the world's getting back to normal, though, back to normal, whatever normal is, we're starting to be able to do things in person. And when I started these, I started them because we were all at home. A lot of us couldn't get anywhere. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't meet up. And of course, that's no longer the case for many of us now. Some of us, that's still the case. And for that reason, I intend to continue doing these because I like the interactions with you, and I enjoy being able to include as many people as possible. So that won't change. However, now that we can add other options to the mix, I thought it was probably about time that we tried to do that. I'm very keen to see how much this can be a thing that I can do that will support itself as an activity. And whilst I do these for free, and obviously you are welcome to buy me a coffee on the coffee link, or to support me on Patreon, or even join one of my groups on Patreon. It's not that you don't get something for supporting me. I would hope that I was honor the people who support me with something in return. I would like to see if there's an option to actually make this a thing that I do. I have run things in the past where we had workshops. Alex Rawlings and Ollie Richards and I and a few others, we've run things we called polyglot workshops, and that was kind of an in-person event that we had, and we'd go over language learning methodology and talk about ways to learn language, practical tips and help and advice and all that kind of stuff. Now, since doing this online for the last two and a half years, and running the groups, the language learning therapy groups, what I've come to realize is that there's something quite specialized about these kinds of help sessions. And definitely now, if I were to go back and do the kinds of workshops that I did before, there would be a very different feel to them. And that would be that we could take a holistic approach to people's lives and see what's possible and what's realistic, and give practical advice that works for you as individuals. As we do here when I answer questions, hopefully there are some of you go away with a question answered that really rings true. Others of you will listen, and maybe you need different words. You may hear it once or hear a similar thing a few times, and it's just a different way of wording things that really ring true for you, that need it to really make sense. And so my thought was doing these sessions I've been doing over the last year or so with the groups, and also this type of advice and question and answer with topics where we talk about very specific things to do with language learning. We do that in groups, and my thought was to start doing that in a month's time. I'm gonna look at setting up a session in London towards the end of September, probably the weekend of the 24th and 25th of September, just before the European Day of Languages. And I think it would be a really nice thing to do. I would definitely love to spend time with you in person and break bread with you and just make an entire day of it. And I've not yet decided whether or not that should be a 2-day thing or whether it should be 2 separate days. But I think both work, and I've tried both before. Often the 2 single days make more sense, just because people have commitments and families and different things. So getting a day to do something is easier than getting 2 days over a weekend to do something. And so what I want to do is see if that's something we can replicate in different parts of the world as well. So what I like to do is try and combine any trips that I have anyway, but also things that make sense to make these things work in person. So I've created a link that's in the description of the video. At the moment, you can just find it on the YouTube video, but it should appear on the Instagram video after the live has finished. And you're very, very welcome to fill that in. And what I will do is if you fill that in, I will keep in touch with you about when I'm going to have these, and maybe it'll be in your city. And if there are enough people who want them in certain parts of the world, then I'll look at putting them together and sort of having days where we spend together talking about language learning. You get to ask all the questions you want, and we get to really get to grips with the language learning queries and questions that you have to help you be successful and to help you stay motivated and to really figure out sort of your routine and rhythm. And I think that would be quite a wonderful thing to do. And I really enjoy that kind of thing in person. And we also just get to hang out together as well, which, you know, during the downtimes for lunch and for breaks and things, we get to hang out. And so I hope that feels like something that some of you would want to do. It's certainly something that I've really enjoyed doing in the past, and I would definitely love to do again. As I say, fill out the form and see what you think. If you work for an institution or an organization, a business, and you would like to see this where you work, then you may want to be able to reach out just as a place for me to go and do this, or to go, for example, with if you've got an HR department that is interested in teaching people languages and would like to make the most of any language training that you're doing as a business, then that's another way where I see what I do at the moment and what I've been doing over the last 2.5 years as beneficial. So it can have a wider application in terms of training, because we answer questions about not just about languages and about language learning, but also about us as individuals and how we learn. And we have really honest, frank conversations. So this is an event that I would want you to come with a very open heart, so that we can really make the most of the time and get the answers that you really need, instead of it being, you know, oh yeah, I want to learn this language, isn't it great? Yeah, we'll just open a book and learn it. I would really want it to be something meaningful for you. You know, my goal is not to just give you something that you can just pick off a shelf. My goal is to make it personal for you and to make it work for you. And I want each and every one of you to be able to go away from my sessions feeling that you've got something from them. Because as somebody who offers this kind of sort of help and advice, really the biggest thing I think for I don't know if it for many people, but I think for a lot of us, it's a nice feeling when you feel you've achieved something with somebody, built something, done something, and you can see the journey. You can feel sort of the before and after, and that means a lot to me. So I would absolutely want to do this with you if that's your goal too, if you want to do it. It could be that you come, and we've had people come in the past to the polyglot workshops when we did those, that just simply like the company of other people who are learning languages. And that's also not necessarily a bad thing. The only thing I would say, if that is you, is it can feel like it's yeah, I mean, we want to make it a safe environment for people who are learning their first languages as well. So we would definitely look for an encouraging and positive atmosphere, so that we all feel that we're on a level, and I know I am, and I know that when we have these things, the two things of people coming in for the community and for the help actually mesh very well and have done very, very well. And so I would encourage you to come if that's also your goal, because I think we do get motivated by hearing people's journeys, and we do motivate each other, and well, we can definitely help each other to continue on with our language learning journey and goals, and be successful. So I hope that this is something that appeals to many of you. It's definitely something that I would love to be able to offer, and I think that if we, as I said, if we have enough people who want to do certain things in parts of the world, then let's see what we can achieve together. In the meantime, I am here. I am also doing my online language learning therapy as well, and you're very, very welcome to join that on Patreon. All you need to do is just go to the speakingfluently.com website, click on the Patreon link, and sign up. It's, I mean, I mean, the Patreon, when you see the amount, it's actually, I don't think, particularly high amount of money that I'm charging for the Patreon. If you think that it's 4 sessions a month, and yeah, you get quite a lot, I think, for the amount. It's also you know, to my mind, it's something where if you, and I have tried to do this all the time as well, is where I see an option to help, I will definitely offer that help. And if you're not getting it through the session, then from my point of view, that would be a failure on my part, and I would work to make sure we try and get to a resolution or a realization or a result that you can accept and feel happy with. That's what I aim for, and that's what I strive for. And so I hope that means something to you. Anyway, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. So if you are going to be in London the weekend of the 24th and 25th, absolutely sign up on that form so that I can tell you what's happening, and let you know where it's going to be, what's going to be, when it's going to be, and all that kind of stuff. But that's basically what you are going to be looking out for, is some sessions with me to go through language learning and answer questions that you have. And we'll probably do some social events as well in London, so that we can just spend time together. So let me know, and I'll be very, very happy to see you in London on the 24th and 25th of September. Okay, so they're my things that I wanted to say at the start of this session. I know it's slightly different from what I normally do, in that I normally just talk about language learning straight away, but I thought this was an interesting development in what I can offer moving forwards, and I hope that you appreciate it and can enjoy it too. As I say, it's definitely a lot of fun. So yes. Okay, let me see if I've got any questions now. And I'm going to start, because I started on YouTube last time, so I'll go to Instagram first and just check. Hello, everyone joining. Oh, dearie me. Okay, let me see. Hello, 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 hello. I'm seeing lots of hellos, 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 hello, 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 hello. Okay, seeing lots of nice smiley faces and clapping hands. That's very nice. Fluently. Fluently, yeah, I don't know if that's a question. What would you like to know about Fluently? I just see Fluently with a question mark. I don't know what the question is. Amazing. Okay. Could I join you someday to talk about language learning? Sure. I'm English teacher in Brazil. You mean to join me on a live? Is that what you mean? I mean, you're very welcome to invite me to a live. Absolutely. If you would like that, then I'm very happy to do that. How many languages do you speak fluently? define fluently for your needs. I mean, this is the one of the $1 million questions that people often ask. It's really yeah, it's so subjective that I find my own definition and other people's definitions will not always be the same. For me personally, speaking a language fluently usually means that you can express yourself in most circumstances and learn and study and work through the language. Doesn't mean you're necessarily perfect, but you can definitely do that. And how many of my languages I can do that in? At this point in time, I'm not entirely sure, 100%. The most languages I've used in one day for work is 14. And I'm not sure which other ones because some languages I just never have cause to use for work in those kinds of contexts. So it can get a bit difficult to define, and also any given point in time, how fluent is fluent is also a tough one to manage. But yeah, I mean, in one day, yeah, 14 was the most I used for work. Okay, so on to YouTube. Bonsoir, bonsoir. Okay. Merhaba. Türkiye'den merhaba. Selam, selam. Üsküp'ten selam. Evet. Başka bir şey bu. Türkçe olarak. Barışabilir misiniz? Nasıl? Türkçe bu arada konuşmak demek. Yani ya da başka bir şey. Paylaşmak istiyorsunuz. Bilmiyorum. Ama ben zaman zaman bu arada hem Türkçe konuşuyorum. Çünkü zaman zaman Türkler var ve bir yüzden evet bu dili kullanabilirim. Evet. Hi Richard, nice to see you too. Thank you for joining. Buonasera, Richard. Sunt in Budapest acum. Oh, Tiffany, foarte bine. Ce mai faci în Budapest? Bine. Giroici, Richard, Gismorici, Constatu. Hello, Richard. How to teach a high level of speaking in a language. I'm studying Russian. I can have meaningful conversations, but I'm not fluent. I make mistakes and I have to think about words. I mean, this is the question, right? When is fluent? This is perfect example there, Francesco, because you mentioned being able to have meaningful conversations. What does that mean? And where does that become fluent and where does it not? Where is it not fluent? Because making mistakes isn't really the biggest indication of fluency. There are people that speak languages and make mistakes all the time, but can use the language pretty well. So I don't know if that is the indication I would use for fluent. As I say, I mean, for me personally, this is when you can work and study through the language and communicate on most topics. Okay, very specialized topics you might need to learn about, but that's when the definition part of you can learn or study or work through a language. So that means you can learn about certain things through the language to then be able to talk about them. It can be a little bit tricky though, because when you get to languages that are similar, some people can do that very quickly, where they feel confident enough, but then the languages are so similar that it can almost feel a bit more sort of difficult. This is why it becomes very, very complicated to talk about fluency. And having to think about words as well is not necessarily the end of the world. I mean, there are people who in their own one language, if they speak one language, have to think about words sometimes, or they get words wrong, they get grammar wrong. So again, I'm not sure. To my mind, though, if you want to improve your general fluency in language, then you have to come out of your comfort zone, and you have to not just talk about things that you talk about daily, but extend from those positions and start using vocabulary that you wouldn't ordinarily use. So that could be picking topics with a language partner, talking about certain things that you wouldn't normally talk about, to just broaden your vocabulary and your linguistic palette for Russian in your case here. So that's what I would do personally, and listen to things like the news, podcasts, things that have a wide range of topics. If you're into literature or you like reading things, then you can read different things, but then you have to make sure that translates into spoken word, because if you get good at reading, you get good at reading. You don't necessarily get good at speaking. And that's also a question that you need to ask yourself. What is it that you actually want to do and what you want to achieve? But they're my tips to start getting out of your comfort zone, practicing things that you want to talk about in the language, that and using vocabulary and aiming to use vocabulary in detail that you wouldn't normally use. So for example, sort of an A1 conversation might be, yesterday I went to the park, it was a nice day. Okay, and then you may go further forward and you want to talk about more detail in the park. What was in the park? What kind? That yesterday I went to the park, and you're getting into sort of A2 level. I saw a tree, I saw a dog, and we played for 4 hours. It was really sunny, and then it started to rain, so we had to come home. And then you might get into sort of the B level type of things. So whilst we were playing in the park, there was a dog that ran over to me, and it was barking, and I got scared. So when it started raining, it made for a good excuse for us to come back home. And then you might get into more C-level vocabulary, and you can start using sort of more nuanced language, types of idioms and things like that that you mix into it. So depending on where you are in your language, you might want to start adding more of this detail in. And so when you're telling people things or talking about things, go more into the detail, so that you do get to use that vocabulary, because otherwise it's very, very easy to just use the same level of words that you would normally feel very happy using anyway. That's basically what many of us do. Okay, Tiffany, that sounds amazing. Oh, the court says, yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Harriet, everyone, hello. I would love to be able to set that kind of thing up in my city. Yeah, Justin, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, have a look and see. If I'm able to make it to a city, I will definitely do my best. A great idea. Thank you, Lena. I appreciate it. Boa tarde, Richard. Boa tarde. Oh, I'm in Cardiff throughout late September for the first time. Oh no, Israel. Maybe you can make it for a weekend, or at least one day of the weekend, and join in. Let's see. Greetings. Have you been into Faroese yet? I have. So I went to the Faroe Islands many years ago now. I was in Iceland doing a course in Icelandic at the University of Iceland. And then at the end of the course, I think maybe a couple of weeks before the end of the course, I started learning some Faroese, and then went to the Faroe Islands for a week. And it's not that I got very far with Faroese, but I did sort of go through a course in Faroese. It's got similarities to Icelandic, and I'd just been studying Icelandic. And so when I got there, I did do my very best to speak as much Faroese as possible. It was, oops, there we go. It was very, it was very Icelandic. If you didn't see that on YouTube, my Instagram phone went and just fell over. That's why I was laughing. I've not gone crazy. So yeah, I basically went there and I tried to speak as much as I could in Faroese. It was quite a lot of fun. And I even made a video with a local Faroese guy speaking in Faroese and having a short conversation with him. And do you know what? I never released the video. I must have it somewhere. I feel a bit embarrassed releasing a video that's that old. But maybe I should. It was a lot of fun. I really liked it. I barely remember anything of Faroese now actively, but but I was having this conversation when I listened to myself speaking in Faroese with this guy. I was like, "Wow, is that me? Did I really do that?" But yeah. Como sair de um nível intermediário. Alguma dica? Isso é o que eu estava a dizer agora, Mauro, para isso de russo é igual. Então, isso de começar a falar sobre temas diferentes e começar a explorar vocabulário diferente com gramática também. Então, você precisa de falar com detalhes de um modo natural para você, mas também para não falar com as mesmas palavras sempre. Então, isso é muito fácil para fazer. Isso é uma coisa de dizer como, não sei, pode ser eu fui para o parque e eu estava falando com uma pessoa, não sei, e logo voltei para casa. Mas para ajudar mais coisas, para dizer mais coisas, mais detalhes da história, por exemplo. Isso é uma coisa que você pode fazer facilmente. E logo também pode ser também notícias na língua mesma e falando sobre elas com uma outra pessoa. E usando o vocabulário, a gramática com essa pessoa que seja também um vocabulário, uma linguagem que você não tem tendência de usar. Então, isso é uma coisa muito, muito importante para aprender melhor uma língua. Então, e acho que, para mim, o nível isso de intermediário que falamos disso, isso é realmente a prática da língua para fazer isso. E isso é realmente o problema que temos na vida, quando falamos de assuntos da língua do nível intermediário. Então, isso. Do you think that you will ever learn an ocean language such as Fijian, Samoan, Tongan, Tokpisian, or such? Okay. Thanks for greetings from Germany and have a remaining of your day. Thank you very much, David. So I studied some Maori, if that falls under your same group. I have studied some Maori, and that has got links to Samoan, I believe, and Fijian more distinctly. But yeah, I did that for a while, just before the pandemic, actually. The plan was to go and do a language event in Auckland, and I was studying Maori to do that. And then obviously the pandemic happened and I didn't. But and it was very difficult to not knowing when I was going to be going there and focusing on a language that it was difficult to organize the times anyway, with the time difference between New Zealand and then not being able to go there. It was a little bit difficult to maintain, but I definitely would like to go back to Maori. I think Maori is wonderful. The other ones I've not really looked at. I've got nothing against them. If I ever had the opportunity to go, I'd be first of all very lucky, but also yeah, I probably would look at the languages as well. I have a question, please. I would like to start to learn Japanese on my own. Okay, it's a very difficult language. I don't know exactly how to do it. Do you have any advice? How did you learn Japanese? Okay, so I mean, so I've studied some Japanese. I haven't learned like the whole of Japanese. So just to sort of put that out there, first of all, I mean, my Japanese is fairly poor now. It was never amazing, but it's now it's really poor. I studied at university in Sweden, and we used the Genki book. It was Genki book 1 for the level. I think we started Genki book 2. That's what we used. But there are other ways of learning Japanese. I mean, there are a number of YouTube channels and things. I think probably for Japanese, Korean, and Japanese and Korean, I'm going to advise that you go to Lindy and see because she's got an entire list of materials that she's put together, and she's studied way more Japanese than I have, and probably would have more up to date and better advice on specific courses that you can try. But yeah, that's what I would probably say to do. I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel and repeat things that Lindy said, when Lindy can articulate those things perfectly well and has done, and she makes a very good job of doing that. So Lindy Bortes, if I'm sure you'll know her before you know me, because she's got a gazillion followers. But yeah, if you don't have any trouble finding Lindy, I'm sure somebody will be able to put you in the right direction. You can always pop something in the comments. But I've got videos with Lindy on my page, so you can easily find her and see what she says. Привет, как дела? Хорошо, спасибо, все нормально. Michael, как дела? I would highly recommend you use YouTube channel. Matt versus Japan, yeah, another good example. Matt versus Japan, he does things on Japanese as well. I think he has his own method, where I think Lindy, as opposed to Lindy, Matt versus Japan, I think has his own method. Lindy, I think, has a sort of a range, so you could try all of them. See, yeah. Ĉu vi parolas Esperanton? Yes, mi parolas Esperanton. Mi ne parolas bine. Bine. Mi ne parolas bone. Mi ne parolas bone nuntempe, ĉar mi ne havas Esperantan grupon ĉi tie en Skopjo. Ĉi tio ne ekzistas, sed mi uzas ĝin en konferencioj, en la gatheringo, kaj ankaŭ en la Polyglot Conference, sed ĝi estas ankaŭ lingvo ke mi povas ankaŭ uzi en interreto iomete, sed mi tute ne havas tempon pri tie nuntempe kun la organizato de la konferencio en Meksiko. Sed espereble mi parolas ĝin ankaŭ en Cholula. Yes. Richard's language learning therapy sessions via Patreon are amazing. Thank you, Lena. I can recommend joining it. Thank you very much, Lena. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Is it okay? Have you ever put together a list of all the languages you've ever studied? Even just a little bit. I would love to see which ones we don't have in common. Inga, I've had to try and list them for people sometimes. I find it very difficult. I've got to be honest. I find it very difficult because I'll often forget. It's been so many years, so many decades, as you probably have the same. I'm hoping you have the same issue as me. So, I mean, my main focus has been on the three Indo-European language groups that I really go into more depth, and I Romance, Germanic, and Slavic. And then I've studied a number of the other Indo-European language groups, but to a lesser degree. At the moment, my focus is a bit more on Celtic languages, and then some from outside of the Indo-European group as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I could write something down. I'll see if I can do it. Might not be this side of the conference, though. It might be after the conference. But yeah, I'll see what I can do. Let me see. Oh yeah, Steve Kaufman for like Japanese. He has Japanese content on Link as well, of course. Yeah. Please try and learn Hindi language. Oh, I'd love to learn Hindi. That'd be so good. But the moment I can't, just because I've got way too much that I'm doing at the moment. But hopefully in the future, Hindi as a language I would absolutely love to learn. Hi Richard, how do you read difficult novels? I recently tried to read a novel in my home language, Egyptian, but I lost motivation because it was so difficult. So when you say Egyptian, do you mean like Egyptian Arabic or like Egyptian? And is that your home language? If it's not sort of Egyptian Arabic, I'm absolutely mesmerized that you've said that, because that's a topic that I hear about a lot, sort of the variants of Arabic and how they're referred to. So yeah, please do expand on that a little bit more for me. Okay, that's it. Thanks for the advice, Richard and David. Greetings from Barcelona. Moltes gracias. Dres. Hi, Richard. How are you doing? I'm doing well, thank you. I'd love to know how you memorize words faster and speak them clear. Oh, okay. So the first thing that I do when I look at a list of words is I see which words look simple to remember, and I don't worry about them so much. So they are often words that have cognates in other languages that I speak. So they're similar, have a similar word that they refer to in another language that I already speak. Okay, so yeah, it could be like, you know, for example, it didn't take me any effort to learn the word hand in German, finger in German, or nail in German, shoulder in German, because they're all basically the same as in English. But then other words take a little bit more effort. And for those, if I find that I'm not able to remember them because I don't see them enough, and often that is the issue, is you're not seeing and repeating them enough, then sometimes I have to come up with a story, some way of memorizing it to make it memorable. Usually they're stories that I make up around the words, whether they sound like other words. I can then make very vivid pictures to sort of be as sort of memory hooks in my brain, and that tends to be what I do. When we work in the language learning therapy groups, actually, sometimes there are words like we come up and we talk about the words, and we see if we can create memory hooks and stories and things as well. That's one of the cool things that we can do, for example. So if we have specific words, we might be able to think of things as a group, and that really helps. So yeah, I mean, sometimes though, these are very, very personal things. So if, for example, they relate to a language that I know that you don't, then my story may not make sense. It may do, may not. And a word for me, I find that sometimes people may not remember, but because of another word that I have in another language that I speak, I have that as a hook already. And so sometimes that also helps me to remember words more quickly. And I find that happens for many people. So yeah, they're the kinds of things I do though. Quelques astuces pour apprendre deux langues qui sont similaires. Je dois commencer à apprendre l'espagnol alors que mon français n'est pas encore parfait. Et j'ai un peu peur de mélanger les deux. Oui, c'est bien possible. Donc, moi, je dirais qu'il faut vraiment commencer avec l'autre langue, la deuxième langue, voir si c'est difficile à pas mélanger les deux langues quand tu parles les deux. Et en fait, c'est vraiment une question de parler les deux langues en même temps. Donc, ça veut dire avoir des cours d'une langue et après l'autre. Donc, pour moi, par exemple, je ferais comme ça. Je dirais que la langue que je parle mieux, je ferais ça tout d'abord, ou bien, non, l'inverse. Donc, je ferais avec la langue que je parle moins bien d'abord, et puis après, c'est là que je parle mieux. Et donc, comme ça, tu vas pas trop mélanger parce que tu vas commencer avec la langue la plus faible au d'abord. Puis après, tu vas commencer avec la langue que tu parles mieux. Et aussi, c'est important aussi de lire ou bien étudier la langue que tu vas parler, la langue la plus faible, avant de commencer l'heure de parler avec quelqu'un d'autre. Donc, je dirais que ça, c'est pour moi, ça, c'est tout ce que je pourrais te donner. J'espère que ça va t'aider un peu. Merci, Johannes. Terima kasih. Yes, Egyptian Arabic. Okay, so when it comes to literary language, depending on the language that you speak as a home language or language you're learning, sometimes it can differ quite a lot. A language like Arabic has so many different varieties and variations, and standard formal language, and things that relate back to, say, even Quranic Arabic, that I can well imagine that it can get complex in some literature. I can well imagine that, and I'm sure that happens not just in Arabic, but I know it happens in English for people and in other languages too. So first of all, there's that. The second thing is, how do you then work with that? Well, if it's your first language, then it is a case of how many words are you talking about that you don't know on a page, and are they words that you can understand the meaning in a more general sense through looking at the context? Do you need those words? If you want to look them up, you can look them up, but if then you keep forgetting them, is it because you don't really need them in life? And does not knowing them automatically, does that stop your enjoyment of the reading and also of other things in life? If it doesn't, then you might want to leave words that you don't remember straight away, and just next time you happen to come across them, it becomes more familiar each time you see and review them. And so this is sort of a long-term thing that you get involved in when it comes to reading, understanding language, and understanding words that you're not necessarily familiar with. So I would definitely recommend that you analyze how much of the language you're not getting, and look up those words and see, what kind of words are they. Make that part of the game. It turns the whole thing of reading extensively into reading intensively, and the reading intensively is this sort of reading for total understanding, analyzing text, analyzing etymology, analyzing words. It's a different type of a language study, and this is language study and not language learning by sort of just reading a sheer huge mass of words. But you can do that you can do both in tandem. You can read extensively, but you can then stop and focus in on certain parts of the book that you notice a lot of this vocabulary coming up. As it is your home language, I'm guessing that it's not going to be, every page you're going to have this kind of issue. It's going to be certain elements of the story, I'm guessing. So it should lend itself quite well to this kind of, or even just recording the words to go back later. You could even, if you want to carry on reading and enjoying the book, and you can do that, then you can always record the words that you're not so sure on. You could always take a quick photo of them. You could record them in a very quick way, so it doesn't really distract from the reading, and you'd come back to them at the end and have like a study session to improve your understanding and deepen your awareness and understanding of what you're reading. So that could be a good way to try it. See how that goes. Let me know. Sebastian, let's see. I don't suppose you'll ever get to Des Moines, Iowa. Well, who knows, Michelle? Who knows? Thank you. I like it. You're very welcome for the videos. I'm very glad that you enjoy them. ¿Puedes hablar hebreo? Un poco sí, pero no mucho. Es que aprendí un poco para para hablar con amigos y tal, pero no lo uso casi nunca. Así que es un idioma que aprendí un poco, pero no tanto. Así. Makasih juga. Okay, salam. Oh, shukran. Sorry, shukran. Thank you, Sebastian. Thank you. Afwan. Or afu. I'm not sure how you say it in Egyptian, Arabic, but yeah, I know afwan is fusha, right? Is it al-afu as well? Or mine? Let me see. Afu. Okay, cool. Let me see if I've got any more questions now on Instagram that I can see. Wow, quite a lot of messages. Okay, I hope I'm not missing any here. Fluently as well as you speak English. Fluently as well as, do I speak any other languages as fluently as I speak English? Well, English is my first language and I was fully educated to university level in English. And I grew up in an English-speaking environment. So speaking another language as well as I speak English, exactly as well as I speak English, I think would be very difficult because I didn't grow up bilingually. Are there languages that I speak to a level that are professional and I can do academic work and I've not had any issues with using in my life? Absolutely. Are there people that have mistaken me for somebody who grew up bilingually? Yes, there are. Is that universally true? It's subjective. But yeah, there are probably languages that I would say I speak reasonably well. I say that I've studied and worked and lived in the languages, in the countries, for example, France, French, Spanish, German, Dutch, Macedonian. So those five, in addition to English, yeah, definitely are languages that I've used a lot. There are other languages I've used a fair amount, and definitely, I think would be difficult for somebody to say I don't speak them fluently. I've not met anybody that says that I don't speak Italian fluently, for example, but some other languages too. But those five I use at home as well. Oh no, Dutch I don't use at home, but the other four I use at home as home languages. But I mean, are they like my English? No, no, they're not like my English, because I know a lot more about the dialects of English, the accents of English. I can imitate the accents and the dialects more easily in English. I know I have quite a good command of English, I think, as well. So I make mistakes, but I've got a fairly good command of the language. As a first language speaker, I mean, not in general. Let me see. Can you look at my DM, please? Not right now because I am on a live, but maybe, yeah, I'll do my best to look afterwards. Do you enjoy teaching languages? If yes, are you doing it? If not, why not? Oh, wow, okay. Do I enjoy teaching languages? I'm not 100% convinced that you can fully teach somebody a language. I think you can help somebody and enable someone to learn a language. And do I do that? In part, yes. Is it my main occupation? Nope. And do I enjoy it? Yeah. I enjoy talking people through the learning process, and so yeah, in that respect, yes, I have taught people languages, of course, but yeah, I mean, it's part of the thing that I do on Patreon, I guess, is that idea, but it's not necessarily taking a language and teaching some language. It's helping people to enabling people and supporting people through the learning process. And yeah, I really like doing it. Yeah. Harriet, I have a question about, oh, sorry, my word, maintaining multiple languages. Okay, at a higher level. Okay, let me see. Not sure if you can already. You've already spoken about this. Okay, today. Okay, so maintaining the multiple languages at a high level. Yeah, it's tricky because you need the contact with the language. You have to also decide, do you need to do it? I mean, it's all well and good talking about learning lots and lots of languages, but what do you need it for? What are you doing it for? Is it something that you can maintain in the future? And is it something you need to maintain in the future? Or is it just you want to do it? And there's nothing wrong with just wanting to do it necessarily if that works for you. But being sort of honest with yourself about what that means in terms of your life and your lifestyle, then that's where it gets a bit trickier. So which languages, why, what kind of level are we talking about? What do you need them for? They would be my questions back at you, because I can't unfortunately answer the question in any good faith and be intellectually honest without knowing more information and more background, which is why this is why the groups work particularly well, why sometimes some of these lives, while they're very enjoyable, it's difficult to get to the very root of things in the same way. Sei mai stato dove? A Firenze? Sì, sono stato a Firenze, sì. Sono stato una volta. Poi sì, sono andato a Roma e poi a Firenze e poi dove? Ancora Rimini, Verona, Ancona, ancora qualche città in Italia. Sì. Okay, I'm glad Richard Scott. Oh, I've got a new name. Yay. Richard Scott is good to experiment learning languages. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hey, Padai. Hey. See. I'm going through and just looking to see if I've got any other. Fala comigo. Olá. Eu não sei o que dizer. Se você tem alguma pergunta, pode perguntar sem problemas. Isso. Então, let me see. Instagram live. Okej. Och ska du göra Instagram live i andra språk? Ja, det har jag gjort. Inte här, men jag har gjort det på portugisiska några gånger. Och det fungerar bra. Nej, jag gör det inte så mycket här. För att när jag har en fråga till exempel, jag kan svara så säga någonting på ett annat språk här. Men jag heter på engelska som neutralspråk som jag använder här. Men ja, det har jag gjort med andra människor på Instagram. Och det fungerar bra. Hello Richard, have you reached a high level in another language by using self-talk? Not on its own. No, not on its own. I have used like self-talk to practice, but not on its own. The reason why is because you need that interaction with another human being to get that spontaneity going. Otherwise, what you can do is get very good at saying things that you know and feel comfortable saying, but then you're not necessarily getting the realistic feedback and responses that another person would ask you. And that plays its part, I think, in language learning. So yeah, it helps, but it's not the be-all and end-all for me. Okay, let me see if I can answer some more questions here on YouTube. Warum ist Deutsch eigentlich deine Lieblingssprache? Weil ich Deutsch in Deutschland gelernt habe, in einer Familie. Also deshalb. Also ich habe mit Kindern Deutsch gelernt. Ich meine, wenn man sowas macht und die sprechen über Matcha-Pampe und Bollerwagen und kannst du Spagaten, solche Sachen, dann wie kannst du eine Sprache so nicht lieben, ne? Ich meine, es ist so eine schöne Sprache auch, wie man wie man so solche Sachen wie, ja, ich hab dich lieb sagen kann oder so. Sowas kenne ich gar nicht in anderen Sprachen, die ich spreche. Ich meine, ich hab dich lieb. Es ist sowas schöner, sowas Schönes, ne? So, ich meine, es ist schöner als zum Beispiel, ja, ich liebe dich. Auf Englisch ist nur I love you und das war's. Ja, ich hab dich lieb. Süß. Es ist so niedlich, es ist eine niedliche Sprache, es ist eine sehr schöne Sprache. Ja, deshalb. What would you say is your favorite language that you speak? German. German's my favorite language. I love German. That's what I was talking about now in German. Sorry, I saw the question afterwards as well. Doesn't Esperanto sound like a romance language to you? Okay, possibly unpopular comment, but Esperanto. I'm very conscious that Esperanto sits in my romance language brain. Sorry, Esperantists that didn't want to hear that, but it does. It sits in my romance language brain, and the languages I confuse it with, typically, actually, it's Italian, is the one, because my tendency when I speak in Esperanto, so it would be that I would want to say the la with mia, la mia, because you say mia, mia capo, for example, my head in Esperanto, but I would often, if I'm not thinking, I'll say la mia capo. It's wrong in Esperanto because it's basically the Italian way of using a possessive, but in Esperanto you don't do that. You say mia capo, but that's where it is in my head. Absolutely. Oh, dearie me. I hope I don't get killed for that. But I that's where it is in my head. Okay. Richard, how are you? I'm doing well, thank you. Hip hippopotamus. I like your name. That's great. Dear Richard, apologies for the off topic, somewhat related question. How proficient do you think a non-native speaker needs to be to raise their child in that language? Ooh. That is a very difficult question. If you're talking about raising a child in a language, that's trickier. If you're talking about speaking to the child in a language so that they get your knowledge, it's a different question. Can I just ask for clarification on which one you want me to answer? Are you talking about speaking to a child in a language that and exclusively talking to a child in a language that you don't feel particularly comfortable in, as opposed to introducing that language to the child? It's a very different answer that I would give. Do you speak Romanian? Puțin românește. Ich kenne auch andere Sachen. Okay. Sorry for being. Okay. I think that's for the conversation. Okay, with Johannes. I'm new here, but you seem like a smart guy. Thank you, Alex. Yeah. I wonder if my wife would agree. She says I can never find the car keys. So. Richard, do you have any experience with South Asian languages like Gujarati, Punjabi, Tamil? If so, what challenges do you face? I haven't studied them. I would love to learn some of them. Gujarati and Punjabi obviously are very different to Tamil, because Gujarati and Punjabi, as far as I'm aware, as my memory is correct, are Indo-European languages. So they would be a lot easier for me to tackle than Tamil, because they'll have words in common that I will know already. Tamil is a very different type of language. I think it's Dravidian, and that would take a lot more time for me to learn, I guess. But I would love to take it on at some point. Yeah, but no, not yet. Let me see. Okay, I think I got to the end of the questions. Look at that. It's the first time actually in a long time I've got to the end of the questions. Incredible. Yes, I have. I got to the end of the questions. Yay, go me. Okay. So we got to the hour, and I got to the end of the questions, which is amazing. And as I say, remember to do all the likes and shares and subscribing and all that kind of nonsense that you know, helps make me feel like I'm saying something worthwhile to somebody out there. But also, please do make sure that you fill in the form that I'm going to link to, that I've linked to below, just so that we can make sure we do meet up in person, and you can be updated on when I'm going to be somewhere and where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be doing, and I will love to do it. I'm not a spam person. I don't try to sell you lots of things, so it's literally if you are interested in catching up and doing any types of courses that I do in person. Obviously, I'd have costs involved, but clearly, if I'm going to be in a place, but it would be wonderful to be able to do something like that, to offer something like that, as well as doing these free online chats every week. And then also there's the Patreon, if you want to go to Patreon and support there and join one of the groups. Until next week, I will say goodbye for now. I hope you have a wonderful week of language learning, and I will definitely be in touch very soon with more information about this idea of workshop in London, 24th and 25th of September, and I hope to see some of you there as well. Oh, and I see you come back with a question about raising a child. Thank you. So raising a child in a language you don't speak well, it will work easily, potentially, with a limited number of vocabulary when the child is very young. As the child grows, then if you're not continuing to improve your language, it gets quite limiting quite quickly. And also, are you able to express your emotions and things and talk about things on that kind of scale to enable the child to be able to express themselves to their questions that are important to ask? So if you're learning the language at the same time with the child as well, then potentially, yeah, why not? Because you'll have a good 3 years before, or two or 3 years before the child's saying that much. But after that, you start getting quite complicated questions and things that you need to be able to tackle, depending on what the language is and how different it is to the language or languages you already speak. That will also play a part. Hope that helps. Anyway, I will see you all next week. Thank you for joining me, and take care. Have a great week of language learning, and see you soon. If there's anything in particular you want me to talk about in the coming weeks, please feel free to reach out, and be very, very happy to do that. Take care. See you then. Bye-bye.